have notes here for my slides, so in case I freak out or forget what I was going to say, then it's right there. But they don't work here, so I basically don't know what I'm going to say. So if I stare at his face and you're like, what happened to him? Did he have an aneurysm or something? You'll know it's because I can't remember. So, and I also have a compulsion to apologize for a variety of reasons, but mostly because I realize you're wasting a perfectly good afternoon sitting here listening to a cartoonist monotonely drone on and on about himself. There's like a reason why cartoonists shouldn't do this, which you're probably already starting to get a slight awareness of. So hopefully the lights will be dark enough so that those in the back especially can slip out very quietly when things get dreary. So, let's see. I think I can just go then here, but I have to pull out the little keyboard here. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. Why'd that happen? Okay. That wasn't supposed to happen. You're not supposed to see the desktop. Okay. So, can you put the lights down so I don't see anybody at all? That's great. Oh God. All right. So I'll try to go through these as quickly as possible. I've been asked to talk about myself, which isn't really that hard, actually. Most people can probably do a pretty good job of that. So this is me when I was about my daughter's age, I think about 8 years old, 7 or 8, picture taken by my grandmother. I grew up reading superhero comics, like pretty much every nerdy male in my generation, and got ruthlessly made fun of and jumped in the school hallway for doing so. And now I'm kind of irked that it's actually become the socially acceptable, sexually active mainstream culture. Like normal people go see superhero movies and they don't get made fun of for it. So that's not fair the way things have turned out. My Snoopy doll. Everybody has a favorite stuffed animal. I grew up. I never knew my real dad. He disappeared early on. And these are the people who raised me. My mom on the left, and my grandfather, and my grandmother on the right. Both my mom and my grandfather were newspaper editors and newspaper writers. I kind of grew up in a culture of newspapering, visiting the Omaha World Herald. I grew up in Omaha, Nebraska, seeing the presses running on the weekends when my mom would go into work on a story. My grandmother was a really wonderful storyteller. I think she's really the reason I tried to become an artist or a writer. She could create a sense of reality through just a few well-placed sentences that was really mesmerizing. It was almost like time travel listening to her tell stories about her childhood. So, my grandfather actually wanted to be a cartoonist. Early on, he was born in 1899, and he went to the University of Nebraska ostensibly to study mathematics, but he secretly took art classes to become a cartoonist. And in a questionable act of undergraduate joke playing, he and his best friend stole stationery from the dean's office, sent a letter to all the fraternities on campus commanding them to report to the gymnasium on a Sunday morning for mandatory BD testing. And he got thrown out of college for that. And the only job he could get at that point was as a newspaper reporter, which gives you an idea of what level newspapers were at that point. He ended up being a sports writer. Coincidentally, my mother went to the same college and ended up leaving there under somewhat similar circumstances for bottling brown beer in Pepsi bottles and selling it to the incoming freshmen. So I did not get thrown out of college, so I grew up in that chain of difficulty. This is me growing up. I don't know exactly what happened to me, but it was not pretty. I started out kind of okay, and then things just went worse and worse. So this is what happened. This is my generation of cartoonists. We're just all kind of nerds, and we're better off staying at home, but I've already covered some of that territory. When I was a kid, I didn't really know much about art. As I said, I grew up in Omaha, Nebraska. I watched a lot of television. There's an art museum there, the Johnson Art Museum, that my mom would take me to, and I took art classes there. But to me, art seemed like something that had already happened, like it was over, and that there were all these things on the wall left over because of it, and that's what people looked at now was, advertising and television. But I was still amazed by drawings like this
And I wanted to learn how to draw like this. It seemed like there was something in these drawings that saw reality more clearly than photography did. Same time, I read a lot of comics, and though I said I read superhero comics in the picture I showed earlier, I'm holding a Snoopy doll. Peanuts is really what meant the most to me.
And to this day, I still read Peanuts. I think it's pretty much the only literature I can think of that you can read as a 5-year-old and as a 50-year-old and still get something as rich and important out of. Charles Schultz he was really a great man. He was a humble, warm person who gave grandly of himself and was so involved in his strip that he literally died the last day that his strip ran. Like, he could not live with, I mean, obviously he was sick and it's not a coincidence, but it's also, there's a certain poetic connection there between his work and his ending. So he couldn't talk about his characters when he knew he was going to end his strip without bursting into tears, which tells you something about the truth of it. In high school, I got very interested in the underground comics. This is Robert Crumb, everybody knows him. He's probably one of the best living artists. I think he really can see, and I think he's underrated for that, actually. A lot of people know him for this sort of Snow Begin stuff, but discovering his work was really important to me. As well, the magazine Raw, published by Art Spiegelman and his wife Francoise Mouly in the 1980s. It was sort of like the polar opposite of what, I shouldn't say polar opposite, but it definitely had a different approach to comics than what Robert Crumb was involved in, but I think it's just as valid and interesting. The experimental comics magazine, Art, of course, wrote the graphic novel Mouse about his parents' experiences in Auschwitz, and I'm convinced that, I mean, not only is it the greatest graphic novel published, I think it's one of the most important works of American literature. I just saw the originals actually in New York last week. We just had a show open up at the Jewish Museum, and just seeing them on the wall, it was like looking at the manuscript for Moby Dick or something. There's a density and intelligence and an honesty to this book that is just becomes ever clearer with each passing year. So.
They published many different artists. One of my favorites
early on was an artist named Panter, a self-described punk artist whose work sort of blended both the stylistic and expressionist tendencies to try to get at things in the human experience that really hadn't been got at before in comics. Like, you can see this page here. This is from, I believe, the late 70s or early 80s. It still really hasn't been equaled. And in Gary's work, it's kind of created this whole other branch of comics, everything kind of strained forth from his forehead. Anyway, this is the stuff I was looking at when I went to college and tried to draw my own comics, just of course I've been doing it as a kid. And I started out doing this kind of expressionistic stuff. Off to the left there's a Crazy Cat by George Herman, with which many of you may be familiar. I think it's probably the greatest comic strip ever drawn. I won't try to describe it here for lack of time and my own inability to do so, but it has the power of having characters that literally seem to live on the page, and that really struck me when I was trying to draw my own stuff. And off to the right, there's one of my early crappy strips drawn in the same kind of, with the same materials that Herman was drawing, very influenced by him. I was drawing at this time without penciling or planning at all, just drawing directly on the board and aiming to see what would happen. So. At the same time, I was studying painting and sculpture. I was in art school. I didn't study commercial art except in high school, briefly, at a vocational school, and I went to college to study fine art. This is one of my paintings from that time. It's an 8x12 painting, and it's a painting of my grandfather. And I knew it seems insane, because it was insane. I spent a whole semester painting that. I knew nobody would know who he was, but at that point it didn't matter to me. I was just trying to connect with feelings within, at this point he had died, and with the feelings within me, and sort of a sense of trying to get those out on the canvas. Whether they meant something to anybody else, I wasn't sure. So there's an animated film that I did projected off to the right there, the character I showed earlier, with the hat getting blown up, and that's his actual hat hanging on a hook. And then in the lower left-hand corner is a little doll that I made in a box, based on these stupid superhero dolls that I had as a kid, and the character that I made up as a kid called the Hurricane. Kind of a autobiographical thing. These are some toys that I made when I was in school, I felt very stultified by the sort of painting and things that I was being exposed to, if I can use that phrase unironically. When I was in art school, I didn't feel smart enough. I didn't feel like I understood it really. I was kind of overwhelmed by a lot of the painting, but I was trying to rise to the occasion. I was studying philosophy at the same time. I kind of thought I might be a philosophy minor as well. So I was trying to be smart about it. I'm not an idiot, you know. One of my favorite painters that I discovered at that time is painter Floyd Norman. I think this is one of the great masterpieces of 20th century art. When you think of a portrait or a self-portrait, you think of something from the outside in. And I think this is really truly the very first painting, at least in modern times, painted from the inside out. If you look at it, it's as if this person had never seen a mirror or seen themselves. It's what it feels like to be in a human head, to be in a skull, the sort of meaty weight of it, the sense that there's something here that has a hole in it that you see out of it. There's something attached to the side here that's stubbly and hot and red. And he did a number of paintings like this after working in the abstract expressionist vein and just feeling disgusted basically by modern art and feeling that it wasn't connecting to the human heart. He felt that it was a sham. After he died, there were all these notes shoved in the back of his desk that his daughter found, expressing his kind of anger against modern art, but then he hid him away because he felt like he was saying something maybe a little too strongly. So. This is an artist that Art and Francois publishing, Mark Beyer. It's actually very similar to both of us in a way. It's kind of the first time comics from the inside out were attempted, I think. Mark is a really interesting artist. Has a lot of inner demons, I think. So. But this is all stuff I was looking at, trying to get at an approach to comics that came from the inside out somehow. And this is another biographical painting about my grandmother's house. Again, nobody would understand it at all. It has movable furniture on it, magnetized. There's a painting that's stretched over metal, and then you can move around these pieces of furniture. Spent a lot of time at my grandmother's house, and off to the side here is a toy that I built, kind of a joke on abstract expressionism. When you push the button, he makes this mark over and over again. For people blind. I mean, some of my teachers didn't think it was too funny. Can't blame them. But at the same time, I was making paintings and sculpture and films and stuff. I was doing strips in the student newspaper. And leading, I guess, kind of what was a double life, I suppose, because comics are seen frequently as kind of a commercial pursuit, and some of my teachers even accused me of trying to make a buck, which, you know, how are you going to make a buck publishing in a university newspaper? I think I got paid like $8 or something like that. So. But I realized that my first strips were pretty traditional with words and pictures, and I realized I was relying too much on the words, so I decided I would completely wipe out the words and try to tell stories using only pictures. In sort of the George Herman way, with characters that hopefully lived on the page, which of course meant that in order to communicate an idea, I had to use a lot more pictures. And I ended up making these kind of incomprehensible strips, but at least it taught me that the engine of comics is this kind of, if you read comics without words, you still hear sounds in your mind. I came to think of it as this sort of music of comics. There's an internal rhythm and logic to them that is analogous to the experience that we go through when we read other human beings' gestures and pauses and movement of the body in a way that you can tell whether they're telling the truth or not. So this is the kind of thing that underlies all human experience, and I think comics get that really well. But I realized I was kind of going down a dead-end road. I was doing strips about mice and cats, and I wanted to bring human beings back into it. So I was looking at strips like Little Nemo in Slumberland, this beautiful strip from the turn of the century, ran in the New York Herald, about 1904, I think this is. And also up to the right, I don't know if anybody knows or not, but the painter Lionel Feininger did strips for the Chicago Tribune, and it really kind of noble but misguided attempts on the part of the editors to elevate the comics page to the